All right, so good morning, Charged Up Studio listeners. I am so glad to have you here with me once again. This is Dana Olivo, your host and CEO of Market Atomy LLC. And today we have a very special guest with us, Commissioner Russell Wiegel, Florida's Chief Financial Regulator, is here with us today to talk about his efforts to create awareness and attract investment dollars to Florida. Let's please all welcome Commissioner Russell Wiegel to Charged Up Studio. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Dana. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
No, I'm glad to see you too. And this is a subject that's always interested me, being located here in Florida. I've always thought that we just did not have the capital money coming in this state for the amount of business that we're generating down here. So I wish you luck. I know that I'm on your panel that we're trying to do, so that's good. So let's get started. What does the Office of Financial Regulation do, and how does that impact investing?
Thank you. Well, I'm employed by the Office of Financial Regulation, and this agency is in charge of providing regulatory oversight for Florida's financial services industry. We have broad jurisdiction in the financial services area. We issue charters to state banks. We charter state credit unions. We regulate the securities industry, the brokers and the investment advisors, and the and offerings that are conducted by companies in state. And we also regulate consumer finance. And so that would include mortgage lending, payday lending, check cashing, and money transmission. And so we cover a lot of areas. And
you got a big job on your hands here.
Yeah, it's big, but it's exciting too. It's thrilling to to serve in this capacity.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I mean, you're talking about anything that has to do with money coming in and out of Florida.
Pretty much, yes. The only thing that's financial service-ish, I guess, is we don't have jurisdiction over is insurance. So,
oh my goodness! So what are some of the challenges that entrepreneurs and investors face in Florida? And keep in mind, our listener audience is primarily solo micro entrepreneurs. So they're just at that stage of considering, do I want to get investment dollars? I'm starting out, I'm self-funded right now. Kind of explain a little bit of the challenges that these entrepreneurs are facing.
Well, thank you. I think Florida is caught up by its own background, history, and as you're probably well aware, I mean, we unfortunately have been one of the fraud capitals in the country, and particularly in South Florida. And we have always had a very bad reputation, about scamming seniors and scamming investors and so forth. And so our regulatory outlook, our regulatory program, has been built to deal with that. And it's a very tough program. It's very tough on small business in particular, because it's historically many small enterprises, particularly penny stock offerings and so forth, that were conducted in the state, were fraudulent, and a lot of people have been hurt over the years. So Florida has that background, but meanwhile, we've also changed demographically, in the last decade at least, and in population, as you may well know, we're now the third largest state, and so we've edged out New York. We're behind Texas and California, and those other three states are the three states where they have developed in-state capital systems. Florida does not, and that's why I painted the background, about our history, and but I think we need to, become, much more like they are, and open, some of our avenues that we've foreclosed in the past, and allow small companies to start seeking capital, because that's how we're going to end up moving forward consistently. We're moving forward because we have an influx of population. We have a phenomenal amount of wealth in the state. We also have a history of being predominantly real estate investment focused and not business investment focused. And I think that's going to be an educational issue for the state going forward, and that's something we can talk about. But so the mindset of a lot of people in the state is not aimed at businesses, and in particular, the reason that I embarked on this initiative to try to change securities code and create an ecosystem for the formation of capital for small companies in the state was driven by the fact that I was observing, well, of course, the difficulty in funding small companies, but also the fact that those companies that do get funded usually are getting funded out of state. That also presents a potential brain drain for particularly young people in the state as they seek jobs. Oftentimes their job opportunities are with smaller companies, and
right.
If the companies are only getting their expansion capital out of state, then those folks are going to leave the state to go get jobs, and that doesn't make sense to me. So
exactly. So why have we? You talked about how we've gotten a reputation as far as for fraudulent activity and things like that. Why did we? Is it because we were a transient state primarily, or what caused a lot of that? Why was Florida targeted, is what I'm saying. Can you get into that?
I think it's yes. I mean, it's in part the fact that, we have a history of selling swampland as, beachfront, and, the ultimate Ponzi scheme origins were here, and then it, the warm weather always attracted the wrong elements, and also attracted the retirees, and it was a bad mix.
Okay. So tell us about your draft legislation. How will this proposal address Florida's capital funding needs for small and expanding businesses?
Thank you. Well, we can only change our statutes. I can't do much more than that at this level, but that would be a big lift, and it's something that we're excited to embark on. And basically, the idea is we're trying to lay the guardrails for the development of an ecosystem that would support the funding of small enterprises. And we're doing that in part by reducing some of the barriers to entry that were posed by our existing statutory scheme. And we're also, including in our initiative some ideas from other areas, such as the Securities and Exchange Commission has come out with a couple of ideas in the past couple of years, and I think those are good ideas. We're also trying to fix some of the federal ideas that Florida internalized in terms of its legislation, and it didn't work here, so we're trying to fix those. And by that, I'm referring to crowdfunding. So there are a number of things I can touch on that I think are going to be, exciting features of the legislation that might be relevant for your audience. And so to speak about crowdfunding in particular, crowdfunding never worked in Florida. We enacted a crowdfunding statute in 2015, and this is for in-state crowdfunding offerings. And it was patterned after the 2012 Jobs Act, the federal crowdfunding program. And the reason Florida enacted its own statute, it, like many other states, got tired of waiting for the SEC to step in and create the rules that would implement federal crowdfunding. The SEC didn't get into gear until 2016. And so Florida jumped in 2015 and created a system that was mirrored after a federal program, and it just didn't work in Florida. It was too complicated. The federal system had some interesting features to it, and that is it tried to leverage internet advertising as a means of conducting offerings for small companies by conducting internet offerings, it required those to be conducted by a third party, which it named or called a portal. And it was an online enterprise that was showcasing crowdfunding offerings, much like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe campaign,
Right.
and but for investment purposes. And those portals just never signed up in Florida. And so without the portals, no company in Florida was able to actually do one of those offerings.
Right.
And so it was just dead on arrival. And but the idea of that system, I think, is exciting, because if it's done correctly, and one of the reasons it's a thing at the federal level, but it's not a very prevalent thing. There are offerings conducted every year in the crowdfunding space, but there are not a whole lot of them. And one of the reasons I think is just, frankly, it's very expensive for the companies to engage in, and they have significant upfront costs, and they charge or get charged significant, basically broker fees by the portals. And at the end of the day, their net capital received is a lot smaller than probably they would like in a lot of cases. Right. And so we're looking at that and trying to think of ways that we can do online investment solicitation in a way that reduces cost. Because in the Florida market, we're much more locally focused, and that's the purpose. I mean, every company in Florida, if they want to do a national campaign, can do it in the federal system. Mm-hmm. Whether they would be successful.
Guidelines. Yeah, you have a lot of SEC guidelines you have to follow, in order to do that. Now, it's my understanding that we do have one or two portals here that seem to be pretty good. I mean, FINRA approved, that type deal, right?
Yes. Well, we have several FINRA licensed portals in the state, but those are licensed to conduct federal offerings. We got our first Florida-only portal like a month ago. And so that's a new thing here. It's our first start. I'm not sure that portal has signed up any clientele yet, but at least, I mean, that's the starting point, is to get portals incentivized. And right. and so one of the features that we're including in the bill to incentivize portals is to register for Florida purposes, is to allow them to do other kinds of offerings, not tie them only to crowdfunding deals, and so give them some flexibility. And at the same time, if we have a company that feels like it can do its own offering like it wants to do its own crowdfunding offering in the state, and feels that it has the capability to launch that, why not let them? Why do we have to incur the expense of a third party if they can do it themselves? So,
especially if these portals are following the guidelines so that it's protecting them against, doing something illegal or whatever.
Of course, yeah. The portals have to be compliant.
Yeah, exactly. Then you don't have to worry about going out and finding another third party, like you said, and paying thousands of dollars, for it. So right. I know you've been kind of, pushing this out and creating awareness for what you're trying to do here. How has it been received in the early discussion so far?
I think everybody that we've talked to has been very excited. And we've talked to a number of different entrepreneur communities, such as incubators around the state, associations that are focused on this. We've talked to some venture capital funds. We've talked to a number of FINRA licensed portals, for example, and gotten their feedback about what's working and not working for them. And then we're we've internalized this feedback and made it public on our website so that the public, can continue to offer up comments, and that alone has been an exciting process because, we're trying to get into the marketplace and find out what it is they want, and
Right.
and do ultimately a data-driven analysis on what kinds of things they would like to see in a Florida landscape for this capital market. But we envision a multi-year effort at this, and right now we're working on I refer to as a 1.0 version bill that will put a number of the tracks down in the direction that we think are important, and then we'll do a deeper dive in the coming year with a lot of the comments that we've received, and other concepts that have been proposed, and see what we think is going to work, what the public wants, and see if we can make a 2.0 version of our bill at that point. That would assume, of course, that the 1.0 version gets passed, which it might not.
Right. Exactly. And anytime you're putting some kind of bill together, it's really complicated and long.
Yes, and we're also, it's long for other reasons. I mean, we're also trying to modernize the securities code. It hasn't really been modernized or addressed in probably at least 15 years, and a lot has changed. And
that's like trying to modernize the Constitution.
Sort of, yes. I mean, it's definitely an amendment process. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
So recently, we were talking, and you had reported that Florida was number 3 in new business growth, but we're number 10 in capital investment in the nation.
No, we're far lower than 10. Actually, the studies we saw would put Florida anywhere in the top 3 in the last couple of years in terms of startup companies or company creation. Mm-hmm. However, we're in the bottom 10, certainly in the nation in terms of expansion capital, and so that's the problem. I mean, that's indicative of the fact we just don't have a capital market here for small companies.
Well, and you indicated earlier that has to do a lot to do with previous reputation of Florida, things like that. So it sounds to me like in order to turn this around, we're talking more than just a resolution or a bill introduction. We're talking about a whole marketing campaign.
You're right. Yes. I mean, and it's a perpetual thing. I mean, we need to, generate both awareness about the bill so we can get the system changed.
Right.
But there's a whole echelon that is the ecosystem itself, which really needs to be pondered and pursued by the business community to make it actually happen. And so there's an educational need for investors to understand, what the benefits are of this system and what to watch out for, and likewise, to educate entrepreneurs and even educate some of the incubators, because not all of them are savvy about supporting companies when they try to get funded. They may be focused more on just startup growth and organic growth, I guess, and not thinking about so much the true entrepreneur's spirit, which is to reach out to investors and because the whole point of investment funding is to get a type of financing you need that you can't get from traditional institutions like banks or credit unions,
right.
And or from bootstrapping your own enterprise, or it's to be able to accelerate your growth, and
right.
So
right.
We need both sides of that marketplace educated.
And you talk about education, and you and I have known each other for a few years now. We've worked in the past together, but that's part of where my business has been set up is through that education process, especially for solo and micro entrepreneurs, and helping them understand how to position themselves for this investment capital, and then how to put themselves in the investor's shoes. What do they want?
Exactly. That's exactly the making. We have to get to a point where companies, just automatically know what it takes to become investable. Exactly. And so, there's a curation process that they need to go through, because certainly not every company is going to be set up to enter into this, type of program. It's a different world, and it's a very serious world. And so we want to make sure that, the companies that are ready and are going to take care of investment capital, they're going to take care of their investors, are the ones that are getting out there, and that those are the only kind that the investors want to see. And because we want to ultimately, foster a marriage between investors and entrepreneurs, but only, marriages that are going to be successful, you might say.
No, I agree. I've been working here in Florida, gosh, all my life, but for probably the last 12 years on my own. And, what I have seen, the changes in the entrepreneurial market here in Florida in general, okay, primarily in Orlando, because that's where I'm at. But what I've noticed is the strongest growth sectors throughout the state include, the financial down in Miami, that's your financial hub. But then you've got technology that's growing in Lakeland, because that is the central section of the state. And that's where your telecoms and your internet and a lot of those hubs are moving in there, And then you've got simulation and optics here in Orlando. Why is it that the word is not getting out to these investors? These are leading industries that are changing the world.
Yes, and that's one of the challenges.
Yeah.
Florida, I say is balkanized. We have different industries growing up in different regions of the state. We have a need for businesses, particularly from generated by the academic community, the incubators, the accelerators. They need to connect with each other and start talking. And we're trying to, encourage that level of communication between the different areas of the state, because although the industries may be different, many of the problems and obstacles that the businesses face are the same. They're common. And we're trying to start the conversations and promote the conversations so that the state connects itself that way. And so that the resources that the businesses need, become available, and that the word gets out ultimately, to the investing public in the state, about other opportunities. It's not just Miami. In fact,
Miami's pretty much saturated right now.
That's what they tell me. And, they also tell me that, it's easy to get funded here. We don't need your help. Thank you. They're
a country in itself. So.
Yeah. Well, a year from now or 2 years from now, that tune may be different, I've certainly seen many business cycles in my life, and they're hot right now, but they're not going to be always. And then they're going to be looking around to wonder, well, what do we have here in the state to keep us going? Well, we need to build a system here in the state that benefits everybody. But I'm hearing from particularly in the northern part of the state, a outpouring of need for this kind of direction and kind of a market, because they want it, and they don't have the same luxury of the present that Miami has, and we need to serve all in this state.
Well, I know I've been in conversations with the Florida Chamber, and things like that about what my company, Market Atomy, is bringing to the table as far as the education side for these solo and micro entrepreneurs. And there's an extreme interest in pursuing that. It's just a process. It takes a while to do that. And so with that being said, you talked a little bit about the time frame for this proposed legislation that you're bringing in. Are we looking at 3-4 years down the road? Are we looking at 2 years? What do you think? You said, getting through the first like 101 and then 102.
Right. The 1.0 version is coming this fall, and we hope to get it launched in the legislature in Florida. And but that's out of our control. We're doing all we can to try to move it forward, and the history of a bill is often a multi-year process that it needs to be launched 1 year. Probably won't make it. Statistically, it's highly unlikely that a bill will survive in its first year. But after 3 attempts, 3 years, they're oftentimes successful. So it could be a 3-year project. It could be a 4-year project. I'm doing my best to make sure it's a 1-year project, and hopefully that we can stay on a 1 year for 2021, 2022, and then the 2.0 version would be the continuing conversation for the following year. Because if we can get it done once, then I'm sure we can finesse it the following year or the year after. But we need it now, and I think the things that are in the 1.0 version are things that are going to be significant changes and beneficial changes. And it's not just about lowering barriers. We're also increasing our enforcement capability as part of the proposal, and we also, in the bill itself, we're giving ourselves as an agency a couple extra teeth, to be a little bit more aggressive in the enforcement category. And we also have another initiative in another agency bill we're doing that would give us additional law enforcement capability, and which would primarily be focused on this same marketplace, that is in the securities world. So
yeah.
I'm excited about the things we have going on.
That's good. So can you tell our listeners how they can get involved, to help you support this bill? What's the first step? What can they do?
Thank you. Of course, we're always looking for their feedback, which you can push through on our website. The accumulated comments we've received are visible there, so they can read through them and see what kind of ideas have already been thrown at us, and then if they can think of other creative things to add, as I'm sure there's plenty more opportunity and ideas out there that we just haven't heard, please submit them. And for the bill itself, we need their direct support, and so that's going to take the form of communicating with senators and representatives to show their support for the bill. The bill hasn't been filed yet, so we don't have a number for it or a concrete name that people can refer to. And we're hopeful that in the early in the month of September, we will have that addressed, and then we can interested parties can submit their email to us as well, and they can get on our email list, and then we can communicate with them and tell them what the status is. And when we get a bill number, that'll be a milestone achieved that we can communicate out to them. Then they have a number they can refer to in all their communications with the legislature. And I think so that's going to be the first hurdle is getting the thing filed and getting a number, and then we'll communicate that out, and then we're going to beg for public support. So
the website that they go to, is that the businessaccelerationnetwork.com/Florida?
That is a place they could go. Yes. They can also go to the agency's website, which is flofr.gov. And there's a link on the homepage for the securities initiative.
FLORL?
Sorry, FLOFR. So it's like Florida Office of Financial Regulation.
Say you're making it Orlando based. Okay, all right. And then the other one is the one I just mentioned, businessaccelerationnetwork.com/Florida. All right. So we are now at the end of another episode of Charged Up Studio. And that's it, guys. I want to thank you all for joining us today. And thank you. Make sure you leave a review on whatever podcast delivery platform you're on today, or you can go to our Charged Up Studio Facebook page and leave a review. If you want to learn more about different topics associated with growing a successful business, including developing your investment pitch, visit our e-learning platform, marketatomy.com. I look forward to talking with you again next week for another exciting episode where small businesses get charged up for success. Bye-bye.
Thank you.